Well, hello, it's Pete Kramer with Pete Kramer Media. Welcome to the Lights Up High School Theater Podcast. I'm so happy to welcome one of my favorite people. One of the guys who every year I cannot wait to get to see his shows because he creates magic on that stage. Big stage, big band, but we've got so much to talk about with Dan McCarter. Dan was born and raised in southeastern PA. He earned his bachelor's and master's degree from Ithaca College School of Music, where he studied composition, cello, and violin. He chairs the music department at Suffern High School and then directs their orchestral program, where for 27 years his students have performed their own compositions in concert. That's right. They write their own compositions every year and perform them in concert. Dan has received the Suffern Rotary's Excellence in Teaching Award and has led scholastic festival orchestras in performance of both new and classic works. He also performs as a cellist with orchestras and chamber ensembles throughout the metro area, and his compositions have been performed at Columbia, the North American Saxophone Alliance Conference at West Point. I want to hear more about that. And the Greater Newburgh Symphony Orchestra, to name just a few. Geez, allude, Dan McCarter, is there something you cannot do?
Well, I'm always learning. I'm always trying. I'll try almost anything. So,
well, all that is reason enough to welcome you to the Lights Up podcast. But you're here today, sitting in the theater, which is your office.
It is
because you serve as the music director, conductor, technical director, and producer of Suffern's acclaimed high school musical theater program. Actually,
and I'm honored to do so. Yes.
We could spend an hour talking about each of those jobs, but let's consider this a lightning round. How about that?
Okay.
I would love to cover as much ground as possible today and give students and high school creative teams and parents some actionable advice, things they can take away from our conversation and perhaps put right into practice. Thank you for joining me today, Dan. It was a very long introduction, but you're worth it.
Oh, thank you. Well, so are you, Pete. Thank you for all the work you do in advocating and shining a light on the wonderful things that are happening. Always look forward to reading anything you write and produce, and just thank you from all of us in the high school theater world. You are a treasure. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Thank you. I want to start because let me start with a little background. There's been a lot of background already, but in 2008, I was privileged to attend the Sitz Probe of South Pacific at Lincoln Center. Music directed by Ted Sperling, 30-piece orchestra using the original orchestrations. Loretta Ablasayer, who played Bloody Mary, came in and she began sobbing at the sound of that orchestra. It was a real big band. It was lush, and in performance, you just felt different because of the size. That many people making that much music together was different. When I go to Suffern High School and I see a band of kids, that is, how many kids will be playing at Bye Bye Birdie this year, Dan?
55.
55. Okay, 55. So nearly double what they had at Lincoln Center. Okay, now they're not all ringers, but still, the sound of that, I used to call it a Chris Craft, but nobody knew what a Chris Craft was. It's a Cadillac. It's a big, big sound. What's it like, Dan, to be the conductor, to be there, and when you go like this, when you lower your baton, you get that sound?
It's a wonderful moment. It's a hard-fought moment because you've joined us at the beginning of the process, and as you said, that there are generally no ringers in the pit. Maybe if there's a particularly challenging, like real pro level book, we're talking like Trumpet One in Guys and Dolls. Like a real screaming book that would be borderline inappropriate to ask a high school student to do. But they're all kids,
Right.
So they're learning it literally note by note, song by song. So that moment that the audience hears is the result of countless hours of blood, sweat, and tears from all these kids that are showing up. Right now we're rehearsing 6 hours a week. Next week we go to 8 hours a week. The week after that we're at 12 and 16, and just keep ramping up and ramping up. So that moment is a combination of pride, of how proud I am of these kids for hanging in there with us and putting forth their very best effort, and joy, because what a pleasure it is to make this art for a community that we love, that I love, with a bunch of people that I love. It's just a fantastic moment, that very first downbeat. Also, a slight bit, even after 27 years, just a slight bit of I wouldn't say nerves, but let's say healthy anticipation of the challenges that might unfold in live theater.
You are also you have to be the only conductor that I know of who is also on headset for the technical stuff while you're directing. So
Correct.
you're not only juggling 55 musicians, you're also, when the light doesn't go up on the rose in Beauty and the Beast, you're on that headset saying, the light's not on the rose. Let's
Yes,
take
I am.
care of that.
Well, yeah. So there's been some moments. If you now, I would highly recommend you don't watch me when you come to see Suffern. You should be watching the show, the things that we're intending for you to watch. But occasionally, you may see my head duck down a little bit, or my hand by my tie, and I will still be conducting. But I've had to do things like coach my technical staff on rewiring a particular light that was underneath the set that had gone on the fritz.
Oh.
Which I guess brings me to my very first bit of advice for my fellow, conductors and,
Sure.
and theater educators is, if you're going to be performing, you have to know that show better than everybody, inside, outside, frontwards, backwards, to the point where if you have to go on autopilot to address something that's a little bit more pressing, that's the level of comfort you need to have with the show. And it's also the level of comfort that your musicians need to have with you and your cast. So, I was given probably one of the best compliments of my life by our beloved Celeste, who said that her singers felt safe at Suffern. And I was like, wow, that is really... it's such a wonderful thing to say, and made us feel so good, because that meant that we have an environment where everybody knows their job.
Sure.
Everybody understands their role, and it's just a much more pleasant way to make art together if you feel safe and supported, and knowing that every single cue, I'll be there for you. I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to welcome you into this environment. And I have a wonderful orchestra waiting for you.
That's great.
It's that level of preparation, I think, that makes an enormous difference.
A lot of schools do not bring in the orchestra, don't marry the orchestra and the singers, the cast, until production week. You guys start from jump. Talk about that, why you made that decision, because like I've been to rehearsal, you don't go up until end of March 19 to 21,
Correct.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you will have been, when did your kids first start going into the band room and singing with the orchestra?
Thursday actually is our first time with singers coming up. So
February 5th.
Absolutely. And sometimes, depending on the show, if it's, for example, Into the Woods, we might bring them in a little sooner. Mm-hmm. The goal is to, get the music director in touch with the singers as soon as possible, so we develop that relationship. We have an artistic vision that we talk about. The professional staff at Suffern, we are really close. We work so well together. It's really a family. The kids kind of key into that as well, and mm-hmm. join that family.
Do they play mom against dad sometimes, or
they don't? But I will tell you, we try really hard not to disagree in front of the kids. So
that's another good takeaway right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of meetings to make sure we have a shared vision and we know what we want to produce. Mm-hmm. But the sooner those singers get to work with our pit, who are also students, it does a couple things. It really cements the bond between the various aspects of the show. Cast, pit, crew. We are all in this together. No one piece of this puzzle can be missing for us to make a successful show. So it really cuts down, if not eliminates, any sort of jealousy or animosity or hierarchical thinking. We are all equal partners, and that helps. Because we do have a student pit. They're learning how to accompany a singer. They're learning
Right.
how to go with a conductor. And because the pit is so large, I exercise a little bit more control than a professional operatic conductor might, who might let a singer go.
Mhm.
Um, Again, these are students. They're learning. They're learning how to make this art. They're learning how to express themselves. But we can't expect them to know things that they've never been taught.
Sure. Well, talk about that
Yeah.
for a second, Dan, because I think it's fascinating. I mean, you work with orchestras, so you've got
Mhm.
kids who basically, when you're in an orchestra, all you care about is the notes on the page, your embouchure, or how you're handling your bow or
Right.
whatever, and and the guy with the baton. Those are
Mhm.
the elements you have to worry about. When you're in a pit orchestra, there's the people behind you who are singing.
Right. Yes.
And then that must change. What I'm hearing you say is that having them in the room early shows them what the entire tapestry is going to look like early on, so that they get a sense that I'm the stitches over here. We're making this tapestry together, but
Yes.
without these stitches down here, the entire tapestry doesn't really work.
Absolutely.
Is that an adjustment for student musicians, both singers and players?
Ideally, no, because at Suffern, we really look at technique, musical technique, in the service of expression, in the service of the composition. And in musical theater, it's still a composition. It has all the same elements, and bringing the kids together early. Showing them the expression, showing them all the little intricacies that I expect, the show to take.
Mhm.
Um, it just makes the show that much better, so that we have the freedom, if something goes wrong, to fall back on a really well rehearsed, well understood core of our show.
Mhm.
um, and it just goes back down to the fact that as wonderful as they are, they're students and they're learning, so
Right.
repetitions make a difference.
I love when I go to an early rehearsal. Typically, I come a few weeks before, and I'm there and I'm watching, and the kids are getting ready to rehearse, but they've also got their algebra book out, which
Yeah.
it's it's something that you will not see that at Lincoln Center.
Probably not algebra anyway. Um, yeah. And
So
we yeah, it's a lot of time, and that's one of the biggest hurdles that these kids have to overcome, is managing academics, managing other activities, and the very demanding schedule, especially as we get into March. So yeah.
you talked about the team. Randy Schwartz is the director. You've got talk a little bit about your team and how that
Yeah.
and the importance of that continuity. I also want to talk about your bench, which is huge. But let's talk about let's start at the top and talk about
Sure.
just briefly what elements they bring and the importance of that. Knowing that when they go to a show or start working on a show, that team is consistent.
Absolutely. So, and it's been a fairly consistent team over the years, especially when you consider where one of our staff members went to high school. So Randy Schwartz is our director. He's basically my brother. We share an office together. We've been working together for a very long time. Um, it's to the point where we'll know what each other wants to order for dinner before our wives do. So it's bad. but a lot of the show is generated by conversations that he and I have, because we spend hours each day together. So there's a free flow of information, of ideas back and forth. And then, that spreads throughout the rest of the staff. Rich Murray, our set director, is also in the building, and he's a frequent guest in our office. Also, just talking about sets, the interaction between sets and blocking, and sets and tech. Everything is in conversation. There's nothing in this show that is arrived at independently by any one director.
Mm-hmm.
After every rehearsal, at least 3 or 4 of us are debriefing, talking about what worked, what didn't work, what can we tweak to make the show even better. Allison Meyer, our vocal director, music teacher at Connor Elementary, a wonderful musician and educator and vocal pedagogue. She and I work very closely together, again, bringing those singers in, talking about what I want to see happen, what she wants to see happen, creatively, expressively, with singers, what needs to happen, what do the singers need. Sometimes it may be, hey, we got to add a B flat in the pit somewhere because they got to bring this note in out of nowhere. So
That's
we can
great.
adjust.
That's amazing. That kind of thing is where you know you need to signal to them that they're on their own without a net, and you're going to give them a net a little bit, aren't you?
We always give them a net. Absolutely. You may not notice the net, but it's there. And then our choreographer, Homeria Lubin, was a student here at Suffern High School. She was in my orchestra. She played violin. She's been on our stage. She was,
Wow.
Granny and Into the Woods, and just a wonderful addition. And so she really understands what this is all about, because she's been through it. And she's a phenomenal dancer, phenomenal dance educator. And the kids really come away from it just having an understanding of how to move. I mean, seeing the dance auditions in December and then jumping forward to March, it's astounding what she's able to do with our students. It really is.
That's amazing. That's great. And I'm, the pieces of that all come together, not independent of each other. They're kind of starting to. If I'm going to continue, I'm going to beat this tapestry thing to death. But the weaving of that starts early, and it continues to take shape and continues to deepen. You have, without a doubt, the deepest bench in terms of actors and singers that I know of in the area. Talk a little bit about triple casting your show. Cast, that's 3, and what performances, what that looks like production week. So take us through that.
Certainly. It at least doubles the intensity. It's not quite the rehearsal time, but it means that we have to plan out well ahead. And Randy's great about, saying, okay, here's the show. Oh, here's our bell. We're in a school.
There you go.
There's the bell. He's good about having an idea, well, certainly the hard deadline, which is opening night. And then we work backwards from there and saying, okay, we need so many run-throughs with each cast. Obviously, the evening cast is going to get the majority of the run-throughs, but we do make sure the matinee and the concert cast do as well. Yes, go ahead.
Great. Yeah. So there's 3 casts. There's the evening cast, which is the main cast, right?
Please report to the main office.
There you go.
Sarah Ray, Kevin Bayer, Christian Onse, Kirsten Pacheco, Gabriela Gonzalez, Karen Perez, Mariela Hernandez.
It's quite a list.
My goodness.
Madison Moran, Samantha Pichardo.
You forget the high school.
Can we edit this out in post?
Alejandro Hernandez.
There they go.
Please report to the main office.
Okay, your name wasn't called. My name wasn't called. I think we're not needed at the main office.
We're good. We don't need to pick up a paper. We're all set. All right.
So you have the main cast. You have a matinee cast. They go on the Saturday of the show.
Correct.
And that's a separate cast. So you're doing Bye Bye Birdie, there'll be a different Kim, a different Hugo, the entire leads will be different.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
And then the Monday of production week, you have a concert cast.
Correct.
And that could be underclassmen for the most part.
Yes, almost exclusively underclassmen or students who have less experience on the stage.
And they'll sing with. They'll know the show, obviously, but they're singing with binders.
They do. They may be on book if they want. So we, I don't know if you've ever seen, for example, the anniversary performance of Les Mis on PBS, or when
Sure.
they did chess, in a concert form. We basically copied that idea, realizing that some of our younger students don't really get a chance to work in depth with us until their junior or senior year.
Right.
You talked about a bench, and looking at it from a sports perspective. Sports is modified JV and then varsity.
Right.
We've taken that model and applied it to theater. The varsity would be the evening cast. The JV would be the matinee cast, which are almost exclusively like sophomores and juniors.
Right.
And then the concert cast is almost exclusively freshmen and sophomores. And sometimes, for some of the more challenging roles, sometimes we may bring in a matinee caster to round out the concert cast. But the idea is that these younger students then have an intense experience preparing the show, working with our coaches and myself, and that by the time then they get to matinee cast and evening cast, they'll have 2 or 3 shows under their belt, as opposed to waiting till they're a senior, finally winning the audition, and this is your first time carrying a show. That didn't sit well with us. Yeah.
That is just remarkable. How long have you been doing that, Dan? I know it's been years.
It has been years. I want to say Fiddler on the Roof in 2017 might have been the first time we've done it.
That's that speaks to the popularity of your program, that you have that many kids. There are some schools, Dan, where they're haunting the halls looking for kids and begging kids to come out for their musicals. You do not have that problem at Suffern.
Not so much. We're more is more. We always want as many kids as we can. We're constantly encouraging students to do this because we just believe in it. We believe in what we're doing. We believe it's so important for our students and for our entire community to make art, to make theater together. And what an opportunity this is. It brings in, our art students into the crew. It brings in all of our music students. We even have places for kids who never thought they'd ever sing a note before.
That's great.
It's a really wonderful collective of artistic and creative endeavors here.
There are shows, because you have 55 pieces. There are shows you can't do.
Correct.
Suffern. You're not doing Little Shop.
No.
Because let me just list off what you've done recently. So
Sure.
This year you'll do Bye Bye Birdie. Last year, Into the Woods, Once Upon a Mattress, which I contend, I'm going to say this, people are going to get upset about this. I don't care, Dan.
All right.
That may have been a perfect high school musical.
Thank you.
The material, the cast, the band, the feel of it. I just felt so at home watching that musical, and the joy of kids playing kid-ish roles, kind of playful fairy tale roles. I cannot. Every time I think of that show, I smile.
That's a great show.
Guys and Dolls before that, Beauty and the Beast. During COVID, you tried to do Beauty and the Beast, and then you made a film out of it the next year, which was amazing.
We did.
That's talk about rolling with it, right?
Yep.
Phantom of the Opera before that. Chess. You did chess with that board. My gosh.
Oh, that was fun.
Fiddler, Into the Woods again. How to Succeed. Oklahoma. West Side Story. Sweeney Todd. Phantom of the Opera again. Les Mis. Hello Dolly. Sound of Music. Bye Bye Birdie. Annie. Into the Woods. And Pippin.
Yes.
Those are shows that have elements that you can use a big band with that.
Mm-hmm.
You have many voices. You can work that.
Yes.
Are there shows you wish you could do that you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's speaking to the size of our program. People ask me, well, why don't you ever want to do Grease? It's such a great show. Everybody loves Grease.
Right.
So, well, okay. Why would I look 44 out of the 55 kids who want to be in the pit orchestra and say, sorry, not this year, and why would I choose a show when I have, 60 plus kids who want to be in a cast and say, yeah, not this year. I look at it this way. Our strength is our size and our quality. And so we're able to mount these big production shows. And a lot of other places in these students' eventual artistic lives aren't able to do that. A lot of, these kids are going to go on to a college program. They might go to a community theater program. They're not going to be able to mount a 55-piece orchestra. They're not going to be able to have, 30 kids in the chorus. And there's a wonderful opportunity for them to do shows like Little Shop, like Grease.
Sure.
But they may never, ever have a chance again to do, Bye Bye Birdie or Hello Dolly or Les Mis. So that, I think, is important for us to give them that opportunity now. And then, if they so choose, they can find those other shows later.
You also set the bar very high in terms of expectation too, and professional behavior, which will put them in good stead wherever they go. They'll be setting that bar for others when they go, and having learned the McCarter way, they will be able to raise up on whatever cast they go to, because they've seen that experience of starting as a freshman, working up to the matinee cast, they know that there's a process to this.
Yes.
Let's switch gears, if we could, to the technical aspects, because you are the technical director there. You're also the producer. Talk about a technical challenge that you faced in whatever musical you want to talk about. Like, I'm sure that chess is probably going to come to mind, but there are so many things. A show, Les Mis becomes a show about a barricade, making the barricade work. Or I remember when you did Into the Woods. I want to say it was in 2016. You had the threeple. You built a tree out of people.
Yes.
These spandex sort of leotardy green things with model designs on them. And they all stood together and they've turned into a tree. It was amazing.
Thank you.
For Cinderella's mother to be in, right? So,
right, yeah.
Talk a little bit. Talk tech to me. What big challenges do you have? What memories do you have of doing technical stuff?
So many challenges, which make the memories. Well, you had mentioned the triple, and it's a beautiful example of working together, of all of the adults in the room, working and involving kids. And I think there's the key. It really sums up Suffern in every aspect, whether it's, Rich Murray with the crew, or, with cast, the pit, the tech crew. If we can possibly involve a student in the process, we're going to do it. It's like the students are building, the students are, running the cable. They're certainly supervised and taught.
Sure.
But, if we, why not work with a choreographer and have, human set pieces and do that sort of thing. A lot of the challenge is making sure that the story comes forth, and the core elements of good lighting design and good sound design. You have to start with, can the actors be seen? Can the actors be heard doing what it is we want the audience to experience?
There's nothing worse for me, and I see a lot of shows. There's nothing worse for me than seeing the work that's gone into a show ruined by bad miking. And so many places, because they rent and they don't have the access to it, mics become the last thing they think about, and it could be, and there's not. I'm not blaming anybody by any stretch. People do what they have to do to get the production done. But if they were to put a couple more days thought into that and rent those things earlier and get kids working with it and put a senior in charge of, or an adult in charge of that, because not hearing all of that work that went into it is a sin. It's a crime to me that you can't hear what's going on, and an afterthought when sound and mics become an afterthought. It's just painful, because what the kids did to get there, and
absolutely. Yeah. And we've had our struggles in the past, so we learn from our mistakes, and so I spend weeks with my tech crew learning proper mic techniques. We're very fortunate. Our district has bought our own set of wireless mics. So we train with them and we put them in early. And
What talk about that if you could. Let's do a little takeaway. Let's talk tech about microphones and maybe some tips about placement or things that could help bring people up to speed on that.
Yeah, well, mic placement is enormous. Yeah, but it all starts with understanding what equipment you actually have. Your main two flavors of microphone. You can get a cardioid or an omnidirectional. Most of the mics that you're going to see in a professional setting are omnidirectional, so you can hide them almost anywhere. In the hairline. Sometimes you might have it over the ear. Sometimes, depending on the hairstyle or the costuming, if we're dealing with a lot of hats on and off, I'd have a couple very subtle, boom mics that go there, just underneath. The things that I teach my students are you want to avoid a place on the face that has any exhale, any chance of picking up the actor's breathing, because no one wants to hear that.
Right.
Especially after a dance number. It's not very attractive. So, and don't be afraid to experiment with mic placement. Everyone's voice is different. And in some cases, a mic may sound wonderful in the hairline, and other students, depending on their build, it may not sound very good at all. Sure. So, you're never married to a particular technique. Keep trying stuff out until you find something that works for your space. We don't use choral mics typically. What we do is we will creatively block students, because we are fortunate, usually run about 22 to 24 wireless mics for our cast and for certain key members of the chorus. And we'll make sure that those mics are peppered around the stage for a large number. And then those mics being omnidirectional will pick up a healthy amount of choral sound. In extreme cases, we may bring some, boundary mics into the front of the stage to help beef it up. But really, the more of the blending of different elements of miking, the higher chance you have of creating some pretty gnarly feedback in your space.
Sure.
Which goes back to your point, trying to get your sound in as early as possible and weed out all of that, bleed out the system for feedback, try to deliberately create feedback, find the frequency that your room is feeding back at and cut that frequency. It's very proactive, our approach here.
And technically, I mean, folks might not understand how this works, but say there are 20 kids on mics.
Yeah.
There's somebody in the back of the room cutting their mic off and knowing when to bring it on, and that there's a whole dance going on that board. They've got to know the show really intimately well too, and whose mic comes in, and you don't want the kid off stage going, "Wow, I really nailed that number," or maybe not.
Right. No one heard it. Yeah. So at Suffern, with my tech crew who work with me all year for concerts and for the fall play and for the musical. Musical is our Super Bowl, if I'm allowed to say that word. Sure. It's our big event, and so everything we do is training for that. So I basically have three stations: a backstage station responsible for any sort of rigging or special effects. I have a sound station. I have a light station, and there's a senior who is the lead at that station, who's operating the boards. We program everything into our shows. Our light board is fully programmed. Our sound board is fully programmed cue to cue. So that, as you mentioned, going from one scene to another, turning off all the mics. In the old days, we'd have like three kids with their fingers on the mute button saying 1, 2, 3, go. And hopefully all their fingers were equally strong and you can get everything at once. And you felt like somebody running off into the hallway talking to their friend, and the audience is finding out some gossip they wish they didn't know. So I mean, that's long past. So all of that is programmed, and we just started, for example, programming the soundboard yesterday.
Wow.
Going,
you're a month and a half out.
Yes.
I'll tell you, there's a great story when it's got to be 20 years ago. I visited Stepanak's. Stepanak had in this, in the Major Bose Theater, this giant cage, stage right against the proscenium wall backstage, and it was a cage, and inside the cage it looked like Young Frankenstein. There were switches and big, like, it's alive kind of thing. And they would have, and there were actual wooden pieces of strapping with different notches on them and different pieces sticking off of it. And the lighting kid, would have to do what they would call a Spider-Man. He would have to move and reach way over to his left hand for one breaker, and way over his right with another one, maybe up high. And it really looked like Spider-Man in order to make that lighting change. Those days are gone, thank God.
They are. We had that when I started in 1999. We had a lighting cage with the patched system, and thank goodness that's been replaced. But going back to the idea of working your way through, just like we have the concert cast and the matinee cast, helping out the senior on the board is a junior who is on book, who is calling the show specifically for not just the stage manager, but you have a lighting book and a sound book.
Wow.
And then we might have a sophomore who might be in charge of any audio effects or anything, or on the light board just watching. And then so for the matinee show, that junior runs the show instead of the senior. So it's a full matinee cast. And then for the concert cast, sometimes if a sophomore is ready, we might let the sophomore run the board for the concert.
It's like an apprentice program almost.
Absolutely, like an apprentice program. Yeah,
that's amazing. And
that's what allows me the freedom to be in the pit, and I'm on walkie, and of course I've got the best seat in the house. I can see and hear everything,
right,
and kind of see trends before they turn into problems, and I can then be on the walkie with all of the kids trying to head off a problem before it happens.
So theater is all about moments. Every time I talk to kids, I ask them for to think back to the moment that they'll remember from their time at their high school. Do you have a theater moment? It's like, who's your favorite child? But I mean, do you have a favorite moment that sticks out to you when you think back to your 27 years or your however many years you've been doing? 22 years?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I've been fortunate to be involved in one way, shape, or form with this theater program all 27 years I've been here. Some great moments. Boy, every show's got wonderful moments. I would have to say, because it's actually, I'm looking at it now, it's backstage because it is so big it can't fit out of the room. The second time we did Phantom of the Opera, and our 9-foot in diameter chandelier is revealed and lights up and gets hoisted from the stage floor to above my head. You can see where those speakers are. That's where I was living. The audience reaction, if they weren't expecting it, that's great. Was pretty cool. Absolutely. You had mentioned the chess board, where we had made a 64 square. Each square was 16 inches in square, and each square was occupied by a Megalight Tough Baby, which is a small LED instrument, a lot of wiring, a lot of programming, and covered with white acrylic. So when stage opened, it was one of my favorite set designs. It was very avant-garde, and we had like weird shapes with lights in them, and then a platform with steps coming down. Everything was in black and white. And the opening where you have we triple cast the Arbiter to make it sort of like this trio of omniscient beings. It's a lot
Right.
of fun. We walk in, and they're singing the story of chess, and the board is just white. It just picks up the pale purple that I had across the psych,
Right.
and the audience is like, "What is this?" So the arbiters, I had them touch the middle of it, and of course, being the music director and the tech director, I wrote in all the music cues into the light script,
Right.
so that the lighting operator was really going by the music. So when that beat happens, the chessboard comes to life and starts creating this expanding,
Right.
light circle that eventually does all these sweeps and things, and eventually just materializes into a black and white chessboard. Which then
Amazing.
during the rest of the show, those squares I had control over completely. They could be, an Italian flag, an American flag, or even a Thai flag for One Night in Bangkok. Sweeps for where I want to be. Each square too, and each character, I gave a color and a location for. So if you were paying really close attention, Freddie and Florence each had a square in their duet. Those colorful squares were lit up against the chessboard. And then when Florence left, her square slowly faded out, leaving Freddie's. And that actually choked me up when, if I could, create that effect for myself. That was probably one of the most fun moments, even if it was just for me.
but that's so amazing, and I love the passion behind that and the intention behind that. So much of what you do is obviously it's for the kids. It's for the kids to get in the pit, to get acclimated, to have that experience, for the actors to have that experience, for your tech kids to have that experience, and I love that there can be things that are just for you. I directed the first show I ever directed, and I tech directed, was House of Blue Leaves, John Guerre's House of Blue Leaves, and community theater. And I was tech director, and so it's all set in this one apartment. And on the downstage door jamb, where nobody could see it except the cast, I put the heights of the boy as he was getting older.
Oh, wow.
Nobody saw that except the cast, but it was there, and it made that apartment a home.
Absolutely.
And that was nothing that anybody could see, but that was another layer, another piece of that tapestry that informed that production. It's not just a set. It's not something we just put up and painted. It's the home, and your home is that theater, and how welcoming that home is for your cast and your pit and your parents and the community at Suffern. They're so lucky to have that welcome every year, and your show is March 19, 20, 21?
Correct. Yeah.
Bye Bye
That's
Birdie, Sweet Apple, Ohio will come
to life, and we welcome back. You mentioned it's a home, and one of the best parts of this program is how many people come back after their kids graduate. Long after their kids graduate, graduates come back and see the show. It's really a homecoming experience that weekend for all of us. We get to reunite as a big Suffern music family.
That's awesome. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time today. That was what a great conversation. I think there were some definite takeaways from,
I hope so.
from planning early to working out those mics and avoiding Spider-Man when possible. And so thank you so much for joining me. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it very much. All right.
That's better.